Last time I explained why vintage lenses are worth your money. In this second part, I will show you 5 very cheap bang for buck vintage lenses that I currently own and use. When I say words like cheap and bang for buck, it is easy to think that the image quality may not be very good, but in my opinion, the images that you can get out of these lenses are above their price range. These lenses should be on your mind if you are in the market for a budget-friendly lens. I will share some facts and info about each one and share my experiences and thoughts on them. Just a quick disclaimer about the list of lenses in this video. Please keep in mind that the list is based on the lens that I currently own. I want to show you the actual lens and my own sample photos from the copies that I own. It is a subjective list and my subjective opinion. It does not represent all the available options in the market. First up, this is the Meyer 1B 37mm f2.8 M42 screw mount. This is a very small lens that was produced for the Zenit SLR system. This lens was designed based on the Zenit Flektogon 35mm with a Russian twist. It currently goes for about 60 to 90 US dollars on eBay. Unfortunately, the copy I have is not really in a good condition. For some reason, when I received it, the aperture ring was quite loose and floppy. I wasn't able to fix it yet. Whoever had it before me must have done something to it, as I don't think it is normally this loose. As annoying as it is, there is no problem with the actual usage, so I'm just using it as is. The focus ring, on the other hand, feels super nice and smooth. The focus throw is really long, almost too long for such a small lens. Even though it is the smallest and lightest lens on the list, it feels solid in the hand with its all metal body. I shot most of the sample photos at 2.8 and I think it is definitely a little soft wide open. Not in a distracting way though. Chromatic aberrations is almost non-existent and I did not notice much vignetting even on full frame. Also, there is little to no distortion in the image, which could be good for shooting buildings. The bokeh I found has a bit of weirdness to it in some situations, and it's not as likable as the other lenses, but it's not a major issue. Overall, I think this lens produces pleasant images, and at 37mm, it is a semi-wide focal length that I find myself using quite often. Jupiter 9 85mm f2.0 M42 mount. This lens is also from Mother Russia, based on a Zeiss design, specifically the Sonnar 85mm f2. Older versions of this lens is silver, but the one I have is the more recent black version. This lens currently sells for around 120 to 140 US dollars. This thing is built like a tank. Focus ring is a bit stiff for my liking, but you get used to it. It's got a full metal body. It's not that big for an 85mm lens, but has some heft to it in the hand. This lens, like many other Russian lenses, has a preset aperture control, which means there's one ring that sets the aperture and another ring that moves the aperture blades into position. It can be somewhat confusing at first, but you get used to it quickly, and the advantage of this system is that you can control your aperture in tiny incremental amounts. Jupiter 9 is a really popular portrait lens. It's probably as loved as the Helios 44-2. It becomes sharp at f2.8 and has a beautiful color rendition. The bokeh is quite unique, but it's likable. There are 15 curved aperture blades in this lens, which means the bokeh will stay round no matter the f-stop. The deciding factor for a lot of people will be the flare. This lens flares really easily. Some people hate it, but I love it. The flares in this lens is probably one of my favorite things about it. When flaring and ghosting becomes too much, I can just control it with a hood or flags. If you're looking for a unique look for your portrait length images or videos, you should definitely try the Jupiter 9. I love contact lenses. The problem with contacts is they are very popular and always in demand. which makes them a bit pricier than other vintage lenses. Contax 50mm f1.7 Contax Ishika mount is the cheapest Contax lens you can get. It is cheap, only a tad slower than the more expensive 50mm f1.4, and maintains the same quality and magic of Contax glass. My copy is the Japanese version. You can grab this lens online for about $200 to $240 these days. The 51.7 is small, short, and lightweight compared to other lenses. It is the cheapest lens in the lineup and does not use premium materials and finishes like its more expensive siblings. It has some plastic in its body to make it lightweight, and the focus and aperture rings are not dampened. However, the build quality is still excellent and does not feel cheap at all. Obviously, there were costs to be cut when making the body of this lens, but the optical performance is another story. This little lens has good sharpness even wide open, and has better contrast than my 50mm 1.4, which is more expensive. The micro contrast you can get in detailed scenes is to me magical. It just has that extra pop that differentiates itself from other lenses. It renders people in a pleasing but realistic way, which I think is really important in this line of work. It also has the Zeiss T coating, which helps with the contrast and flare control. When it does flare, it does so in a nice way. Mine doesn't get too much usage because I also have the 50mm 1.4, but whenever I need a light, compact setup, this is a really useful alternative. Asahi Super Takuma 50mm f1.4 m42 mount is something of a legend in the vintage lens world. It has gained a massive following and reputation among enthusiasts for its quality as well as its affordability. Back in its days, it used to be called the Zeiss Planar Killer. The copy I have is the 7-element single-coated version. You can grab this lens for about $70 to $100 at the moment. The Super Takuma series is probably the only one in this price range that is built with such high quality materials. I have had other vintage lenses in the past, like Canon FDs and Nikkors, but I think Pentax lenses have superior build quality. The body is fully made of metal, the focus and aperture rings are butter smooth. The lens is well put together and you can really tell when you play with it in your hand. And despite the quality materials, it still manages to stay relatively compact and light. I personally think the build quality of this lens, together with the low price, is why it's so widely praised and talked about. Bokeh is a little bit all over the place. Personally, I prefer the bokeh from Contax lenses. It's pretty sharp even at fast apertures, but has this kind of bloom effect at f1.4, which makes it look soft. Becomes perceivably sharp from f2.0. To be honest, for most outputs, even 1.4 will be perfectly usable. This lens flares quite easily. It is one of the reasons why I like it, but the flares have a very distinct shape to them, which I think some people will be put off by. This lens is special to me because it is the first ever vintage lens I bought. It is the lens that made me appreciate and fall in love with the world of old lenses. Asahi Super Takuma 28mm f3.5 m42 mount is a brother to the 50mm 1.4. It is a super low cost wide-angle lens that has had 4 different iterations over the years. My copy is the third single-coated version. This lens goes for about $60 to $90 at the time of recording. Build quality is pretty much exactly the same as 50mm 1.4, which can only be a good thing. The length and diameter is very similar as well. Considering this is a wide-angle lens, it is surprisingly small and light, and this is probably why it also has some limitations. This lens is understandably a bit slow at f3.5. You can already tell from the small elements that it will not suck in a lot of light. Chromatic aberrations and softness is apparent at f3.5, even though it's a slow lens. Image is somewhat underwhelming compared to other lenses in the Supertech series. I only really use it when I can stop down a bit in brightly lit environments. One positive point in the image is that the color rendition is nice and accurate. The real value of this lens is the fact that you can grab a wide-angle prime that performs okay at a dirt cheap price. So I've shown you 5 of the cheapest vintage lenses I own. I personally think they are really good value for money, especially when you're starting out with photography or videography. The danger with cheap vintage lenses is that you keep wanting to buy and try more lenses because they are not as expensive as the modern ones. If you are still wondering why vintage lenses should even be considered nowadays, please have a look at my other video introducing you to the concept. In the next part, I will talk about some things to be wary of when buying vintage lenses, some best practices, and my personal experiences when buying and selling.